time. Shadow Secretary of State Sir James Cleverly.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. And I beg to move the amendment standing in my name and the names of my right honourable and honourable friends. When Parliament legislates on elections and the franchise, it is not passing an ordinary bill. It is rewriting the rules by which MPs, and by extension governments, are chosen and removed. And therefore, changes to those rules should be done carefully, after proper consultation, and fully in the knowledge of the potential knock-on effects. And whilst there are many elements within this bill that we support, against the metric that I've just outlined, this bill, unfortunately, falls woefully short. It creates deep inconsistencies around the age of maturity. It risks weakening the integrity of the electoral register. It sidesteps serious questions on foreign interference in our politics. It reduces protections against electoral fraud, and it has been introduced without proper consultation. Madam Deputy Speaker, let me briefly start off with the process. Political parties were not properly consulted before these proposals were introduced. And if the government wants to defend itself against the accusations that it's putting its thumb on the scales for narrow party political advantage, this isn't the way to do it. And the right honourable gentleman should know that a quick phone call on the day before the bill was introduced is no substitute for proper engagement. There is a long-standing convention in this country that governments do not unilaterally impose changes to electoral law. When the last Labour government brought forward major electoral reforms, it did so through working groups, the Green Paper, draft legislation, select committee scrutiny. That government understood that legitimacy matters. This government has chosen to put political advantage over consensus.
Thank you for giving way. I was fortunate enough in 2017 to be selected for a private member's bill, and it was Oldham Youth Council that asked for votes of 16 to be included. Now, they watched it go from a campaign to manifesto to a bill here on the floor today. So if they saw it coming in the manifesto, why didn't he?
Sir James Cleverly.
Not sure that addresses the point I was raising, but I will come to votes at 16. I will come at votes at 16 in a moment. Madam Deputy Speaker, this government has chosen political advantage over consensus. And it's not just a pattern confined to this bill. We've seen it in the handling of local election pilots, advanced without proper transparency or meaningful consultation with political parties. We saw it in the attempt to cancel this year's May elections, another decision taken without proper engagement. Elections are the foundation stone of democracy. They are not an administrative inconvenience to be switched off and on at the whim of ministers. And against that backdrop, they say that this bill is to defend against political interference. And the Right Honourable Gentleman has said at the dispatch box that they have commissioned a review on this very subject. But they have not waited for that review to report before bringing forward the legislation. So if the Rycroft review matters, why legislate before it reports? And if it doesn't matter, why commission it in the first place? So, of course, the correct action would be to await the findings of the report and then bring forward legislation in a coherent manner at the next King's speech. And I appreciate that the timetabling and the time for debate today was not in the Right Honourable Gentleman's hands. But we're now in the situation where we have a huge number of speakers on a really important matter, on a constrained timetable, because quite rightly the Prime Minister gave a statement on the Middle East. Oh yeah, she would like it not to have a debate, of course, just rush it through, says a lot. But the point is, this is important, and the time should be taken. We know that we're running out of time in this session. So why does the Right Honourable Gentleman not do the right thing? pause just for a short period of time, introduce this after the King's speech, and give us a proper opportunity to debate it and get it right. I've been Foreign Secretary and I've been Home Secretary, and I saw how persistent and serious the threats from hostile states are to the democratic process in this country and other countries. It is important, and I recognise that the government is seeking to take action on this. Russian aggression, Iran's hostile activities on British soil, and the interference and espionage activities of the Chinese government have sharpened the risks to our political system. But with regard to engagement, I ask the question, why has the government not engaged with my right honourable and gallant friend, the member for Tunbridge, who led the Defending Democracy Task Force before and during the last general election? He's been targeted by foreign governments. His advice has not been sought. Is it right? Sorry, it is right that the government seeks to protect our democracy from foreign interference, from dirty money, from intimidation, from corruption. But this bill fails to match the scale of those threats. It does not address, for example, the consequences of devolved franchise changes to the UK political finance rules, the devolution loophole. We agree that no government should accept impermissible donations. And the question is not should we or should we not. The question is whether this bill properly targets the sources of hostile state interference. Fund transfers through UK banks are already subject to robust anti-money laundering checks. And if the objective is really to stop hostile state money, then enhanced security should be focused on the higher risk routes, not duplicating existing restrictions and stifling legitimate domestic activity. And the honourable gentleman who's no longer in his place, the mask slipped when he basically decided when he invited the right honourable gentleman to ban donations from legitimate British companies because he just doesn't like the industry that they're in. This is what causes concern about the integrity of the decisions being put forward in this bill. Let me turn to automatic voter registration. Individual voter registration was introduced for a reason, to improve accuracy and reduce fraud. And automatic registration cuts right across that principle. It risks adding names to database, it risks adding names from data sets not designed to determine eligibility. People move and data sets lag behind. And an inaccurate register creates vulnerabilities and the opportunities for abuse. Let me just make a quick point, then I will give way. And this rollout will be phased, will it not? Which means that some parts of the country will have automatic voter registration ahead of the next general election, and others will not. So the government, if it's making the case that automatic voter registration increases turnout, the government will be choosing which parts of the country have increased turnout and which parts of the country do not. Surely he must see how cynical that looks in the eyes of an already sceptical electorate. And I will give way.
I thank the Shadow Secretary of State for giving way. Will he not accept that 8 million people either being on the register in the wrong place or not being on the register at all is also an example of an inaccurate register? And it would be better to have people over-registered who then presumably don't turn out because they've moved away or whatever, than under-registered and disenfranchised. That of the two inaccuracies, being unable to vote is the inaccuracy we should be more worried about if we believe in democracy.
Sir James Cleverly.
Look, he makes a reasonable point. It is not an unreasonable point, but it is a point of debate. Registration in the UK is not difficult. It is not difficult. And the fact that some people have not registered is not in itself a rationale for undermining the integrity of the voter registration process and introducing errors. And he said, would it not be better to have errors in one way rather than under registration? It is a point for debate. And I actually think that it is better to have the accuracy of the registration. In many parts of the world, people literally put their lives at risk to vote. And people who don't vote in the UK don't vote because it is too difficult, because it is not difficult to vote in the UK. And we have taken steps, both parties have taken steps over time to make it easier. And if people are not voting, perhaps political parties, all of us, should ask why we are not inspiring people enough to go and register, rather than the point he's making, which is putting people on the register who shouldn't be on the register because they don't exist in that place. I will give way. He's been very patient.
Lewis Cocking.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker, and I thank the Shadow Secretary of State for giving way. Does he agree with me that if the government are going to push forward with auto-enrolment of the electoral roll, they should at least do that for everybody at the same time for the same general election, or it could be perceived by the British people as gerrymandering to get a specific result at the general election?
Yeah. Sir James
Well, this is the point, and I'll move on from this point. Actually, I will let the Right Honourable Lady intervene. But my honourable friend makes a really important point. If the government's contention is that auto-enrolment increases turnout, then turnout should either be increased universally or they risk being perceived as putting their thumb on the scales.
Dame Emily Thornbury.
I have to take objection to what the right honourable gentleman is saying, because surely this is the situation. If you are a citizen, you should be able to vote. It should be as easy as possible. It should be as easy as breathing to be able to go and vote, because you are a citizen and you have a right to vote. And every attempt should be made to make it easier, not to make it more difficult. And if automatic enrolment helps people to vote, then that's what we should do. And of course we need to be careful about it, and that presumably is one of the reasons why it's a rolling programme, to make sure that it is being done properly, rather than doing it everywhere on the same day. But, you know, in the end, we all should want the same thing, which is that British citizens should be able to vote in British elections and nothing should get in their way.
Sir James Cleverly.
It is easy to vote. Everyone does have the right to vote. By her argument, she's saying it should be as easy as breathing. By her argument, she's advocating removing all electoral limitations and restrictions. ID, proof of address, registration. Oh, there you go, the mask has slipped. The mask has slipped. If we take democracy seriously, we should want everyone that has the right to vote to be able to vote, and they do, but nobody who does not have the right to vote being able to vote. Otherwise, the democratic process is meaningless. Safeguards must be robust, verification clear, and pilots should be transparent. Integrity is strengthened by accuracy, not automation for its own sake. And on voter ID, let's look at the facts. At the last general election, the vast majority of those who sought to vote were able to do so successfully and immediately. And public confidence in the polling integrity has increased. So why weaken the system by allowing bank cards without photographs to be used as ID? A name printed on a card is not an identity check. And I'm not hearing that he's advocating the checking of PIN numbers at the polling station. The risks are obvious, and indeed the Electoral Commission itself has raised concerns about the security and practicality of expanding the lists of acceptable IDs. I need to make some progress, otherwise I will be told off by Madam Deputy Speaker. Integrity is not just about integrity at the door of the polling station. At the Gordon and Denton by-election recently, democracy volunteers reported widespread breaches of ballot secrecy. Parliament strengthened the protections for ballot secrecy through the Ballot Secrecy Act in 2023. And it's not family voting, Madam Deputy Speaker, it is breaking the law. And if polling station staff do not intervene when a voter is directed by another inside the polling booth, if secrecy signs are missing, if offences are ignored, then the problem is not an absence of legislation, it is a failure to enforce the legislation. The vote belongs to the individual, not that person's husband, not that person's brother, not to a community leader, and no cultural practice overrides the secrecy of the ballot box in this country. The Right Honourable Gentleman mentioned artificial intelligence and deep fakes, and he is right that we are entering a new era, and we support the idea of digital imprints. The rules exist, but the technology is moving fast, and we would support, and we're happy to engage with sensible, proportionate measures to ensure that AI-generated political material is clearly labelled and subject to transparency as the requirement. But the work should be done carefully and in consultation. Again, this is exactly the kind of issue that would benefit from cross-party engagement. Finally, the centrepiece of the bill, the big sales point of the bill, lowering the voting age from 18 to 16. Both domestically and internationally, through the Children Act and the UN Convention on the Rights of a Child, respectively, we define 16 and 17-year-olds as children. So, votes at 16 can only logically be explained in one of two ways. Well, let me at least make the point. I can see he's itching. Calm. So votes at 16 can only be explained in one of two ways. Either the government is intending to give votes to children, or the government wants to redefine 16 and 17-year-olds as not children. And I will give way.
We just heard the Conservative definition of a child and an adult. Now, in the law in this country, there is no single definition. The criminal age of responsibility in England and Wales is 10. The driving age in this country is 17. The voting age has gone up and has gone down over the decades. So surely we should be thinking about what it means to be able to vote. And by bringing it down to 16, we are bringing it to people who have got the capacity to vote and will vote. And there is also evidence out there that where the vote's gone to 16-year-olds in Scotland, they are more likely to carry on voting, and that will be a benefit to our country, the whole United Kingdom as a whole. Does he not agree?
Sir James Cleverly.
No, he is factually wrong. He is factually wrong. We do have a legal definition of childhood, and there is an international definition of childhood. The Children Act defines 16 and 17-year-olds in the UK as children. The UN Convention on the Rights of a Child defines 16 and 17-year-olds as children. So, I ask again, does the government plan to define this as giving votes to children, or are they now saying that 16 and 17-year-olds are not children? And I will give way if the gentleman wants to.
I thank the Shadow Minister for giving way. On the Armed Forces Parliamentary Scheme, not long ago, we went down to Lympstone to see the Royal Commandos passing out parade. One of the brave young people there was just 17, and at the end of that parade, he is told, "Commando, go off and do your Marine, go off and do your duty." At 17, he should be allowed to vote. Does the Shadow Minister not agree with me?
16 and 17-year-olds can only join the armed forces with parental consent, and they cannot be deployed. 16 and 17-year-olds in the armed forces, 16 and 17-year-olds in the armed forces are children, which is why they are still in the education system, even whilst they join the armed forces. They are non-deployable. They can only join with parental consent. So again, third time lucky, the Children Act and the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child define 16 and 17-year-olds as children. So, for the third time of asking, is the government saying that they are giving votes to children, or are they saying that 16 and 17-year-olds are not children? Perhaps the Honourable Gentleman has the answer.
By the argument that he's making, he believes in children having sex, because the age of consent for that is 16. But I think the mask slipped earlier when he said that this is about sort of gerrymandering, and it's about giving an electoral advantage. And I wonder if he could comment on sort of why his party is so afraid that young people won't vote Conservative.
Okay. It seems that none of them, Madam Deputy Speaker, none of them are willing to address. And it's a really simple binary choice because, as I say, both domestically and internationally, 16 and 17-year-olds are defined as children. And I've asked multiple times, but they will not address this. Perhaps she will have a go. Go on.
I thank the right honourable gentleman for giving me. Does he recognise the valuable contribution that young people in Scotland make to the democratic process and have done since 2014 when they were first able to vote in the independence referendum and since then in local elections and Scottish parliamentary elections? Does he value their contribution?
James Cleverly.
I value the contribution of people in this country, whether they are able to vote or not able to vote. But again, it does not address the point. I'm going to move on because it's clear that they either won't or can't, because they don't seem to know. They don't seem to know, Madam Deputy Speaker, whether they're giving votes to children or stripping childhood from 16 and 17-year-olds. I will give way.
Sir Ashley Fox.
I'm grateful to my right honourable friend for giving way. Does he notice the inconsistency in the government's plans, that they propose to lower the voting age to 16, but they don't propose to allow those same 16 and 17-year-olds to vote for Parliament, presumably because they're children?
I think he meant stand for Parliament, indeed. I think he meant stand for Parliament. So, look, I mean, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've tried on a number of occasions and I've not got an answer from the benches opposite or the benches across here.
The honourable gentleman's not giving way. Sir James Cleverly.
I will give the honourable gentleman, who he knows I respect him enormously, but I have got a number of other points I want to make. If he thinks he can answer the question I proposed, you can. He can, rather. OK, here we go.
Yeah, the Shadow Secretary of State has asked on a number of occasions about do we agree with his so-called legal definition. The legal definition is always for the purposes of the law it's intended to. So the Children's Act definition is for the purposes of the Act. Yeah. Therefore, we are debating for the purposes of voting today. Does he not?
Sir James Cleverly.
So I take it from that he is now saying that 16 and 17-year-olds are not children. Is that the point he's making? So, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've tried to squeeze the logical underpinning of this proposal out of the government, and I have not been able to, because I don't think they know. Because if the government is going to make the case to give the votes to children, then why 16-year-old children? Why not 15-year-old children? I mean, he chuckles. Why not 15-year-old children? I mean, why not 15-year-old children? Why not? His argument, the argument is that they've got this longer stake in society. Well, if it's true of 16-year-olds, it is by definition more true of 15-year-olds. Or why not 14-year-olds or 13-year-olds? Will he take up the proposal of Professor David Runciman of Cambridge University and give votes to 6-year-olds? Because as a society, we do not confer legal adulthood and the actions of that on children, and the law reflects that. 16 and 17-year-olds cannot buy alcohol. They cannot buy cigarettes and vapes. They cannot stand for election to this House, or indeed at statutory representative bodies. They cannot legally place bets. They cannot marry in England and Wales. They cannot join the armed forces without parental consent. They cannot go to war. They cannot consume pornography, and rightly so. And if the Minister and his government now believe that 16-year-olds should, in fact, be of civic and legal adulthood, they should simply say so and put in place the legislative changes to bring consistency across the statute books. And good luck to him if he wants to make the case for 16 and 17-year-olds now being able to go through that and have the rights of the list that I just given. And if they don't feel that 16 and 17-year-olds should have those full rights and responsibility, then this change appears to be selective at best and cynical at worst. Such a fundamental alteration to the franchise for UK elections should rest on broad consensus and careful reasoning.
On the point of cynicism. Clearly this was cynical, but judging by Manchester, perhaps the Labour Party, when it comes to giving votes to 16-year-olds, should be careful what they're wishing for.
I mean, the honourable gentleman makes a very good point. To be honest with you, how people vote. So I'm a believer and lover in democracy, and being punished at the ballot box is a fundamental foundation stone of democracy, and none of us should change the mandate for narrow party political advantage. I strongly suspect that the point he makes is right, but that's not the point that I am making. This move will be perceived to be partisan and counterproductive. This bill could and should be so much better. And if the government was serious about this, they would work cross-party to get it right. Because democracy does not belong to ministers, it belongs to the people. And the rules that govern it must be worthy of their trust. For this reason, we have tabled our amendment, and I invite the House to support it. And I say to the right honourable gentleman, we will work with the government to seek to improve this bill. But we reserve the right to vote it down later on in its stages if the government does not act in good faith and in support of the broader principles of democracy.